Good morning, my listeners. This is Victor Doctor, and this is BSS with No Secrets podcast. Today, again, we are live with a special guest, and my guest is Romek Lubaczewski, partner at PwC.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Romek. I need to say a few words in the very beginning because actually this is you who had a big impact on the way how I am performing at the moment. It was the year 2006, if you remember it, when okay, you may not remember, but this is the year when we met for the first time. It was when I joined SWS at that time team. And together with Jim Costello, we had a talk about how to create the BPO center, the business reality, and so on and so on. And actually, this was the first year when I ever heard about BPOs itself. So I need to say here a big thank you for the very beginning, because it was you who made me to go this direction and just grow interest and skills and whatever can be done within the BPO industry. So big thanks for the very beginning.
I'm not sure I had that big a saying in the whole process, Victor, but thank you very much, really. Nice to be with you, my friend in the business. Yeah, that's the best part.
Thank you. The idea for this live conversation actually was created a few weeks ago when we had a chat about potential virtual SSCs, but we will come back to this in a moment. I guess it would be great if we could just start chatting about the way, how do we see the GBS at the moment? How this part of the industry is growing? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is it changing its business reality? I'd really love to hear your opinion on that part.
It's a great question, Victor. And good news is I speak to a lot of people in the industry and a lot of delivery center managers. So I hear it straight from the guy running the center, and I'm hearing quite different kind of two different voices. One is saying there's concern about loss of work, and the other group is saying they're excited about the growth of work. I have to tell you that a long time ago, 3 months ago, I was hearing more about loss of work. Now I am hearing way more excitement about the growth of the industry. And I have to say, I've over the last 3 or 4 months, where I could honestly say at the beginning I was very concerned about all industry, I have to say, Victor, that when I think about now where we are and where I think we're honestly going to go, I foresee our industry, both shared service centers and outsourcing and any other hybrid of those things, I honestly foresee significant growth, and I can foresee a very good and shining like a light at the end of the tunnel. I honestly think we're going to see growth, big growth. And the other part which I think is changed in my mind is that I think we're going to see a lot more interesting work coming down, things that we've never done before. The art of the possible now is nothing is impossible, everything is possible. And I think that's where we're going to see change, not just growth of work, but growth of new types of work. I'm very positive.
But I will interrupt you here for a second, but do you see this growth like globally or locally in certain areas? Is it a common trend all around the world, like from India going through Europe, ending on US, or there are some regions where actually are more active in that area?
I think India is a bit unique, as always. I think India has seen some tough times in the last 3 or 4 months because the BPO industry suffered in the early weeks, and that's clear that they had a tougher time. They weren't ready for it. Who was? But when you're doing it for an external body and they're paying you, then it's obviously more visible and people are more likely to complain. So I think India started very badly. I think now the big question is outsourcing going to grow or flatten out or shrink? That I don't know. I think BPO is going to be faced with different problems to shared delivery centers and the business that I know better. I think that when we look at this, where are we right now regionally? I think CE is definitely in a really good place. I've got no doubt about that. I think CE probably will be the region which is going to benefit most short, medium, and long term. I think India is going to have a bit of a plus minus and a bit of a yin yang. Everywhere else in the world, I'll be honest, if you think logically, the Americas, most of their work, North America, is actually flowing out. Question is, will any of it stay? And bigger question is, will any of it flow back? So are we going to see outsourced providers closing offices and the work going back to their clients? I think we will find and see some. Will that be a trend? No. And will it be a big percentage impact on the industry? No, I really don't think so. I think we'll experience a few, but I don't think it's a big one. The interesting one, Victor, that I've heard more and more, and now I've actually heard of 2 examples, is where companies are clearly going to be in financial problems. And then the question is, do they and can they foresee that their delivery center is actually an asset? And can they sell it? And you've heard the same, I'm sure, is lots of outsourcers are in the market right now saying we will buy up centers. And I think that's a really interesting thing for our industry is, do I foresee this being big? Yes, not massive, but you know, in the 25 years I've been in industry, in CE, we've heard of 2 of them. Could I see 20 in the next 2 years? Yes. I think companies are going to be financially distraught enough that they can see an easy way to make an amount of money and get rid of a problem is actually to sell it as an asset. And I think that's an interesting.
But of any type of activities, because this what you say, I heard also in the previous years, but it was usually limited to the IT-oriented organization. And actually, now I can also hear some voices from investment funds coming from either US, UK, Canada, or Switzerland, that they are very interested in purchasing the existing companies, just taking them over, grouping them somehow, and delivering the IT-based services. But do I understand you well that this is also focused on the other type of services as well?
Yeah. I think IT's, you're right, I never thought about it that way, that it's different sectors, but IT is clearly one, because the market is definitely going to boom in technology, digitization, globally, everything's going to go bigger there. So you can foresee, do you need more offshore people who are cheaper than the ones in America? Yes, you do. And then you're right, you can get to that logic very quickly. I foresee as well all the other stuff, whether it be finance, HR, procurement, all of those things. What I think is the slightly different changes. I think we're going to see the move very quickly up the path of let's say non-transactional and more complex work. So things like treasury. Everyone will reel off 3 or 4 companies that do treasury. I think treasury will be something that in the next 2 or 3 years we'll see half the centers having big treasury departments. There's now 2% of them too. So I think it's a bit of everything. For me, the bigger change will be in the non-IT, because I think it will be more varied, the work. I think IT is just going to grow.
Okay, I will come back to this example from India, because I witnessed, let's say, 2 types of scenarios when it comes to this pandemic topic and the centers who are based in India. And those 2 scenarios are as follows. One of them is when we talk about the chain of GBSs, so the global business centers, who are present in India, but are also present in the other time zones, like in CE region or in Costa Rica, for example, or wherever. And here the story which I heard is that those ones don't want to cancel or don't want to move outside of India because their services are provided all around the world, and it's good to have this cost limiting element, which is delivered by the India-based or Philippines-based centers. So they don't think about moving, like, let's say, bigger changes over there. But there is the other group, and the second group is for those who have only presence in India or in Philippines. And those one I heard that are considering actually to do some differentiation of their work and are looking for this additional, maybe smaller sites, but in more secure environment like in CE region. Would you agree with that statement?
I think it's a brilliant, again, never thought about it that way, but I think it's absolutely the right approach. If you're looking at it strategically, is that the right thing to do? Yes. What I would think is strange though, Victor, is if you think how many companies only have in their model GBS in the Far East, in India, etc. How many only have the model where they're only there? That's not many. Not many companies are only going to be English language, which is going to be the UK and in US and Australia. everyone who needs other languages is either going to be in Latin or in Central Eastern Europe. So there may be a large group of them, but it's probably not as many as the ones we know, because the guys we know tend to have 3 or 4 centers already. Most big companies have a GBS footprint, which is 4 or 5 centers, and they've got to that logic earlier, which is having all of the scope in one place. There's a risk element to that. What I find about COVID, which is so interesting, is we never ever thought about business continuity on the basis that the whole world would be impacted. I think we all thought it would be flooding in Poland, or illnesses in India or something like that. But I don't think anyone ever looked at it that would actually impact everybody, which is so unique. So no one was ready for this. Okay. But I have to say, I'm with you. I've heard a number of people say that India probably won't grow. Their CEE is definitely moving up. That interest level is that CEE is more interesting than India for growth. Not for a new center, but to grow next footprint, grow new scope.
But is it only CE, or also the Southeastern Europe is on that map? Because last year I actually attended very interesting event in Plovdiv, where there were representatives coming from Bulgaria, Romania, but also Albania, Croatia, Serbia, and those destinations. And they were sharing a lot of interesting data showing that this whole Southern European region, at least based on those data which they were showing, is becoming very active. Not necessarily in only IT services, because it was natural for them for the past years, but also for the others. So I guess this is not only now CE we are talking about, but this region is a little bit wider. I think of CE from the Baltics all the way down through Bulgaria, etc. So I don't limit it to the northern parts, but it is interesting what you're saying. I definitely see more southern Central and Eastern European countries being more aggressive in the market, which is great. And the governments have realized that this is really great jobs, well paid, a very stable environment. It's good jobs. So this is something they should be fighting for. So I think that's a very positive thing, and I see it. I guess my one challenge though is, although it's cheaper than North Central Eastern Europe, which is clear, there's no doubt about that. What I experienced when I went first time to Romania, which is now 15 years ago, and opened a center in Cluj, in Romania. At that time, we were the 3rd center going in, and the market was like Krakow 25 years ago. In other words, really 50 people turned up for every job, and the CVs were flowing, and it was brilliant. It didn't take very long for Cluj to actually be viewed as hot, and then very hot, and then a no-go. And I don't mean 2 or 3 years, but 5 years later, that type of city can't cope with 20 centers going in the space of 5 years, because they're just not physically big enough. So I guess the answer to this conundrum is never look at it and say Bulgaria is great and hold that statement true for the next 5 years. Unfortunately, it does change quite quickly. Definitely within 12 months, you can see a very hot location get quite cold, and vice versa, an unknown place become very known. So whatever article you're reading, check the date on it, would be the advice I give. Oh, absolutely. And the same we can say about Poland. Our country has also changed a lot within the last 2 decades of the presence of the GBS industry in here. And the same is happening, for example, in Lithuania. Let's take a look on that country. Like 5-6 years ago, there were just single centers who were present over there, and just one destination, which was Vilnius. Now there are 4 cities already. The industry is booming. The really great names are settling down over there. So I fully agree. And yes, the data in this industry is changing from year to year. So to be up to date, to understand which destination is hot, which is more colder, this is absolutely crucial. And that's a big work for the consulting agencies actually to run this analysis all the time. Sometimes data from last year are no longer valid.
And salary rates particularly can change massively in a year. To your point on Lithuania, I'll give you a slightly different angle of looking at that. Is invest in Lithuania is probably, in fact, I'm absolutely not probable. There's a fact that they are the best investment agency for shared services in the whole of CEE. They are fantastic. They work extremely hard to be helpful, accessible, easy to work with, etc. That whole team are brilliant at getting you into Lithuania and then explaining maybe Vilnius isn't the best place, but have a look here. So they've done a brilliant job. My challenge to other countries is to do the same. So don't let nature let you invest in other places. I think you have to help steer. So the investment agencies, I think, are crucial in this. Yeah, the cities and then the central as well, both.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. I had the pleasure to talk to Laura from Invest Lithuania a week ago. She is the head of the BPO ICT team within Invest Lithuania, and I fully agree. She had all the knowledge in her head. She could answer every question, and that was amazing. How well prepared she was, knowing the industry she's taking care of. Okay, but let's make another step. Let's discuss a little while about the ways of working, because now within the last few months we have witnessed the situation of moving the whole work to homes. You are now even working from home at the moment. Yeah, I did it as well for 2 months at least. The question is, how actually the future of the GBSs, of the BPOs or shared services, those who are not sold, okay, so let's skip it for the moment, how it is going to work? Do you think that this remote work will somehow stay with us, and we will have the teams who just, let's say, have half of the team working from the office, the other half from their homes, or maybe something different is going to happen, or we will come back to this what we had?
I mean, that's such a massive question, Victor.
Yeah, sorry.
Good news is no. I mean, no, I didn't mean the length of the question. I mean, the question itself is very. No one knows. That's the great one. The great thing. So I'm 50-50. Me and you are going to be 50-50 chance of being correct or incorrect. And if we're incorrect, delete the video.
Okay.
But I would go with. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the old world. So I don't think that a 500-person center will have 500 seats and everyone comes in, sits down at their desk, works 8 hours and goes home. I think that we will never get back to that. I just don't. In CEE, I think India will, but again, they're a very different market. I think CEE will not go back to that world. People have been working at home for an extended period, not a 2-week holiday, but a 4-month holiday. Holiday, wrong word, but 4 months. And many people actually find it positive from a life experience and positive from a work experience in terms of they don't do less. They're not lazier. They're not hiding. You know, they're not doing all the things that the employer is scared of. They're actually doing as much, if not more work. And therefore, statistically and KPI wise, there's no downturn. So the question is, why bring them back to the office if they're as effective, if not more effective, if they're also happier? Because again, you know, I 15 minutes for me to get to the office, but many people have half an hour, many people have an hour. An hour one way, an hour the other. So now it's a 10-hour day. Is it better to give the person 9 hours at home and actually be more effective and efficient? So that's definitely part of the angle to look at. What concerns me though, Victor, is I'm definitely never going to be a fan of the idea of I only work from home. So in other words, I'm 100% at home and someone else is 100% in the office and we never actually physically meet. And my logic here is, in a team of 10 people, the true benefit comes of that team element of when you actually know each other, sit with each other, go through problems together, learn, teach, share, etc., etc. And you can't do that effectively in any way at all when you're in 10 different locations. No matter how good your internet is, you're not going to get everyone on the phone simultaneously to give them a 3-minute prep talk or tell them about an issue you've got. As you can do that when you're live in the room and you just go, guys, come and have a look at this. Let me walk you through. This is a new issue. We've got to make sure we deal with it correctly. But that whole element of the team to motivate each other and to train off each other and to actually be performance-wise 10 great people, the team. My worry is that you risk that if everyone works from home, you have 5 super performers and 5 poor performers, and you end up net lower. And that would be my worry. So I don't think I'm ever going to be a fan of the team working either partially in the office or partially at home, or half the team here and half the team there. I don't think that's the right way to go. personally. That's my view. What's your thinking on that one?
Actually, I am a social person, to be honest. And if you ask me personally, I'd rather would like to come back to this what we had before, so that the homework is rather a benefit, that from time to time I can just stay at my home if there are some other things I need to take care of during the day. But I don't like, to be honest, the whole idea of moving completely to home. Although within the last 2 months, I had a number of talks. I spoke to so many top managers from various companies, and most of them actually admit that from the cost perspective, from the operational perspective, and the other angles which they mention, they'd rather consider putting this homework as a regular part of work. And even today, I had such talk before our call, because I asked about the scale. Okay, we can ask, okay, we have remote work, we have work at office, but how? 50-50? Maybe the other percentages and so on. And the most common numbers which are shown or discussed are between 20 to 40% scale of a team working from home. Like 2 months ago, this scale was like maybe 10, maybe up to 18%. But the longer it takes, these numbers grow. So currently, most of the people who I talk to, they mention between 20 to 40 even, which means that the offices they work at are also going to be changed. So this is another challenge, and very interesting area to be discussed, because half a year ago we never considered that BPOs may consider smaller offices. Now they do. Now they do, and that's a significant issue to be discussed.
I completely agree with you, but the challenge I would give everyone is that the world as we knew it was, you literally come in, you sit down at your seat, it's your PC, your chair, picture of your family, a balloon from your birthday last week, a bit of cake, which has been there for 6 days, all of that, and it's my area. And the person next to you and the person across from you, you actually get on with, because you've been sitting in the same seat for a year or 2 or 5 or whatever. And your team leader's sitting over there. Do you get me? There's this warmth of the way you work because it's become normal. I don't think we can underestimate in our industry that taking that away and telling people to come walk in the office and take a ticket, and now I sit at floor 6, seat number 72C, sitting next to 2 people, I have no idea who they are. My team leader isn't in today. Do you get me? That thing is, then you're literally just sitting there and doing your work. The words matrix comes to my mind, that thing, you know, when you have the thing in the back of your head. You're just like doing. And then my question is, Victor, why do you need to be in the office to do that? Because you can do exactly the same at home, but in flip-flops in your pajamas. So there is a challenge there, is that if you then make it fully flexible, you also have to make the seating fully flexible. And if you do that, then you lose the benefit of that team spirit, which, as I said, is so important. You might save 14% of rent is roughly the cost of a centre. So if you half that, you're suddenly saving 7%. I'd really question you don't lose 7% efficiency from the people coming in or not coming in. You get me? So the cost of rent in the proportion to efficiency is not that big. So I'd rather be really efficient and have more space than be inefficient and have less space. So that would be my challenge. Now, I'm not saying you can't get around it, because then you can actually say 1 week one team comes in and another week another team, and therefore you sit next to the same people. So there are ways around this. But I think you then get into a trap of, is it 2 days off, 3 days, a week off? Is it, 2 days a month and you choose? It becomes very complex. There is no answer. I think that's the point, Victor. And I think me and you got to the same outcome, which is you can't. The biggest mistake is to make that decision now, sitting where we are. I think you've got to go much more carefully and slowly. Don't jump to a big conclusion and turn out to be the wrong one. I think you have to wait for everyone to start coming back to feel what is the realistic medium to long-term need of people, and then work out the model. I wouldn't be throwing half my space away.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I think, and this is what actually was discussed like a few days ago when we were summarizing the month of June with JLL and Michael Page. There was a discussion that this what we have now still should be considered as a temporary solution.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough time to analyze how people will behave in a longer period of time. But from the perspective of half a year time, it will be much more transparent, and we will be able to analyze it more deeper, to see how people actually react on all of this, what is happening. So I do agree with you here that we need to still spend some time, be patient, and not to make crazy decisions at the moment, because it may be more disturbing our regular way of providing services than we can ever imagine. But what I can imagine is, and that the topic which we started talking about in the very beginning and even before this call, so this virtual SSCs, because this model can be created on three legs, let's say. One leg is from the office, the other from the remote work of our own employees, but the third one are the contractors who may be located wherever we want them to be located, like in Singapore, Nepal, Sydney, or wherever. Do you think that such model may be accepted by the industry or by the clients of the BPO companies?
I think it's an amazing question, because it's the question I gave you, because I didn't know the answer, and then you wait a week and give me the same question back. Thanks a lot. Victor, you should be in consulting, buddy, really. Someone gives you a question, you flip it around and they end up with it.
I do my best. I do my best.
And obviously, the great thing was that I rang Victor, so that just shows how much respect I have for you, because I rang 3 people and you were the first of the 3 I rang to ask. And the reality is, I don't think anyone knows. And it's a really interesting question that 2 clients gave me, 2 different clients, saying, do I expect or foresee that, like you said, Victor, it's a 3-legged stool? Office-based people, shared services, the same people working from home and somehow mixing that. And third leg of the stool is a random group of subject matter experts that sit wherever the SME sits. And I've had a bit of time, so I've had a bit more than a week to think about it. And I think no is my conclusion. I don't think that's going to be a big model. And I gave it some thought, which is, well, that wouldn't be much different to really what we experience right now, which is you end up in the GBS world today with groups of people not being in the hub, not being in the shared service center, not being in BPO, because they're subject matter experts and super specialized, and they need to be in New York because that's where Treasury is done best, or London or Frankfurt. So then you ask the question, well, why don't you leave them there? Well, my point would be, is they're there already. So you're leaving the same people. So then is it really more that you're moving people who are currently viewed as part of the business and moving them into GBS? And you just put them under the umbrella of GBS, but they're not technically within the shared services part, meaning physically in the building. Well, yeah, I can foresee that. And I don't actually dislike that model. I think it's a much better model than what you have right now, which is groups of people that theoretically are in the business, but really they should be part of global business services, like a Treasury department. Now, can you then say the Treasury department is best if it's a guy in Nepal, a guy in Singapore, and a guy in Sydney? Is logic tells me no, Victor. I can't see any benefit of having 3 people in 3 different time zones, theoretically seeing each other twice a year, if that, or maybe never. What is the benefit of that? I can't think what it is unless they're super experts. But then my answer to you, Victor, would be, if they're super experts, then they're probably like that already. So they're not the super experts. The 3 of them aren't sitting in New York right now anyway. So why would they need to be in Nepal and think that they're already in Nepal and Singapore? So I guess my thinking for you is, that may happen. I'm not saying no definitively. I'm just saying I don't think it will be a common model where we have 10 or 15% of the staff which are based purely on a super skill, and therefore where they're based you don't care, unless it's a Treasury team in New York and they're just now called part of GBS. So they're still in New York, They're the same group of people. They know each other. They still meet. They're just GBS people rather than the client's name on the building. Yeah. But I think that. But as I said at the beginning, I asked you the question. So what's your thing? You've had
And to be honest, I did my lesson, so I thought about that a lot, and also had additional discussions with some other people from Poland, but not only from Poland. I did also ask some of my friends all around the world, and I believe that this is something. What first of all, we are not ready for that. So that's the first answer. But it doesn't mean we won't be ready for that model. So I believe it will take some time, and one of the reasons is, first of all, how to recruit good people, because we know that via the internet you can expect a lot of, let's say, cheating. Yeah, the other person is recruited, the other one is providing work. Yeah, we know about such stories that they happen. The second thing is the cybersecurity. So if we are able to give some part of our business to external person who was recruited only via internet, even if we provide him secure VPN or whatever it is, still we don't know who is taking care of this data. Yeah, and what can be done with this data. So I guess that cybersecurity is the area which, first of all, needs to be completely reorganized, taken care of, and so on and so on. And then we can start thinking about the next steps in this model. Yeah. The third thing, however, appeared within those talks, that, okay, maybe we will not consider the whole globe and talk about people from Singapore, Sydney, Nepal, or wherever, but maybe it is possible to consider such virtualization within one country or one region. And that allows actually to create individuals or smaller teams, like even up to 10, 15 people, who are located in very small towns, which were completely not considered as the locations to source our employees or contractors so far. So this was also mentioned by a group of my speakers. Yeah. And to be honest, that sounds quite reasonable, because it means that, yeah, like in Poland, we've got so many towns which are up to even 50,000, let's say, inhabitants, where they are completely not on the list for GBSs as the locations for the centers. But now, if this is an option, maybe using their skills in such locations becomes a reality. And then if it is in one region, in one country, it is also quite easy to contact those people, to even grab them from time to time to one office, or go to them and to see how they work, or maybe contract, for example, co-working office where they can meet locally and provide this work from such locations. So there are a number of such stories which are now connecting the dots. Yeah, but certainly people do talk about the virtualization. The definition of this virtualization is different. Yeah, but there is also one other one thing, and we discussed it those 2 weeks ago when you called me asking this question, is the management of those people. Because even if we have the technology, even if people have this internet access, even if they are comfortably working with their sleepers from their homes, this is one thing. But if we have the teams who are spread it all around, how to manage them, and I experienced such situation that a lot of managers don't know or how to well manage such teams on a daily basis. It is good from time to time, but not regularly. Yeah, and this is a challenge.
I agree. And as you were saying that, my thought process was, we're in Krakow. I'm in Krakow. Sorry, you're in Warszawa, but I'm in Krakow, and setting up a 20-person team in Bochnia and a 30-person team in Tarnów, which is half an hour drive and an hour drive for me. You think, hey, that's really logical. Is that so difficult to do? No. Can we do it? Yes. My only challenge to it, though, is you end up with 50 extra people, and in those towns they earn less than Krakow, but do they earn enough of a differential, so much less that it actually pays for you to have that structure in place, meaning you have to have a manager that every week goes up and down the motorway 5 times a week or 3 times a week and visit each of the team and renting additional space for these people to come in and meet once a week, etc., etc. So the whole management of them is way more difficult. And then does it really pay off? So at the end, you've got to balance all of that off, or is it just better to have 50 more people in Krakow? And I don't know the answer to that right now. My answer would be, if it was like a complicated language and therefore going somewhere else to find them makes a lot of sense. But if it's basic processing in English or in Polish or any other language is easy to find. So it isn't because you can't find them, it's because you think it's going to be cheaper or better. My challenge is it better and is it easy to manage? So it goes to your point about managing these people. It's definitely not so easy because they're further away. Simple as that.
Yeah. Other question about the source of new contracts, because if we take a look on the last 20-25 years or how the BPOs or shared services were moving all around the world, setting up their operation centers, the main group of them were coming from US. Yeah, then it was a little bit changing. So there were some companies moving from UK, from Germany, Scandinavia, and so on. Do you think that still US will be the leader in setting up new operation centers? Doesn't matter if captive or in the BPO model within the next years, or now it is more time for Western and Northern Europe who will become more active in that field?
I think that a majority of my clients are global. The majority of the people I speak to are global. And they might be headquartered in the US, but some of them are headquartered in Finland. But we still move work from all over Europe and more from and equally US and Latin America, etc. So I guess my challenge to you is the question really about, is their headquarter more in the US driving the business out, or is it, or are we going to foresee more work coming out where the headquarters are in Europe? And the answer to that one is yes. I absolutely think that we're going to get growth from the existing footprint we have. So companies already have centers. I think they're going to grow. Are we going to get new centers? Yes, we are. Why? Because we've just proven you can do the work anywhere. So I don't need to be in Finland or in Spain or in Italy or in the UK, anywhere. I could be anywhere. And then the question is doing it in CEE cheaper than there? And the answer is yes. Is it better? Yes. So do I foresee more work coming out of Europe in the European-led work, but global in nature? Yes, I do. I guess the other one is, Victor, is the way to look at this is the US have been doing it quite a lot longer. So if you think logically, if they've been doing shared services and offshoring 10 years, and I think it's more like 20, but let's just say 10, they're 10 years ahead anyway. So there's less companies in the US to actually put their hand up and say, I need a center. And their job was a lot easier because it's all English, and therefore India was always the easiest option and relatively easy to go to. Europe's more complicated because of the languages. So yeah, I think it's a good question. I do foresee more work coming out of Europe in the years to come, being led out of Europe rather than led out of HQ in the US.
Although talking about those Indian companies, they are very well present across Europe. So they have noticed that to operate with the European-based companies, they have to be in here to have the access to language skills, for example. So all the big names, all the big companies who are on the top 10, let's say, of the BPO Indian world, they are present across Europe, not in even one location, but in a number of locations.
Yeah, but they're in a number of locations because many times they've acquired a footprint, haven't they? Yeah, so it's not, I'm trying to think through who opened an office from zero, and not many. And those offices, if you really think about it, are all still 50 people. Most of the Indian businesses, outsourcers who are here tended to get a business which already was there, 200 people, and then have grown that as time goes on. Do I think they're going to continue to grow? And yeah, because I as we said right near the beginning, Victor, is the BPO acquisition of delivery centers. I think that is going to happen, and I think there's two colliding paths. One is India's BPO has got enough bad press at the beginning of the COVID to a lot of companies to think maybe India is not the right place. and maybe outsourcing is not the right thing. So these companies who have shareholders are all going to be thinking about, how do I grow? And one of the actually easiest ways to grow is to buy. Go and buy a 500-person center, and suddenly you've got 500 people more and another 3 clients or 1 client. So that's I think going to be one of the drivers. And then so you've got them wanting to buy, and then you've got companies wanting to sell because they're distressed financially. And so $1 million in cash now is worth more than $1 million in cash because they don't have cash. If you think those two are colliding, I foresee BPOs acquiring centers for sure. Where are they going to buy them? I don't think they'll buy them in India. I think they'll be buying them in Central and Eastern Europe and in Europe. Europe particularly, but in CE, you've got to foresee that happening. I really do. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I do agree with that. I even had a few calls already from some Western companies who are interested in purchasing existing operating BPO centers of a scale between 200 to up to 400 people. Yeah. So those are the questions which you can find from time to time. And the problem is that those who theoretically are for sale, they are not saying it loudly. Yeah. So it's hard.
Yes. And Victor, the guy that you can ask the question is often the general manager, and he's not super keen on being sold. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of these companies, their headquarters are a long way away, and they're the people thinking about it. And me and you don't know those guys. We know the guys running the centers. So you've got to go and find the right people to talk to. I think, Victor, we're going to see this coming up. I think we're going to see centers for sale, but I don't think this is going to be widely known. It's going to be quite secretive.
It is a sensitive topic, yeah. Come on, so you don't talk about it in the first lines of the headlines, but yes, it is a new reality, and yes, companies are more willing to be or sold or who want to buy them. Yeah, so this is happening already. Romek, the last area I wanted to cover in our talk, because it's already 40 minutes behind us. I don't even know how fast it went. But coming back to those virtual teams, in understanding working from home, working from remote places, and so on and so on. How about automation and robotics and digitalization of work within that area? Because I expect that actually, if we want people to work outside of our offices, it would be obvious. The more we automate this process, the better. Yeah. So to avoid any repeatable tasks or to secure the let's say the way how we give people the same type of work, for example, and so on and so on. What's your opinion on that?
It's probably one of the biggest topics that everyone's going on about. I think automation and digitization is a bigger topic than offshoring. So when you talk to COO, CIO, and you ask them what are their big plans, most of them are talking about, the GBS footprint, much more automation, chatbots, AI, off you go, machine learning, etc., etc., etc. And I get it. It's just a very logical conclusion. Don't move the work, eliminate the work. It's very logical. My only challenge, Victor, though, is that was no different 5 years ago when robotics came out, right? And no different at all. And yet you tell me how many companies and clients and firms out there, in our industry, that would really, really claim to have implemented robotics to a massive success, have eliminated 20 or 25% of the workload and workforce. You tell me, because I don't. I know some, but very few. Many of them have stories about, they wanted to do robotics. Everyone said it was the greatest thing on earth, and their boss was pushing them. So they got 3 robots, and 2 years later, they have no robots left, or the 3 that they put in place have disappeared. My point to you, Victor, is it was difficult to do before. It is very hard to get robots to be efficient because the processes aren't very optimal. How has being virtual made that problem easier? That's my challenge to everyone, is you can't even sit in the same room as a team and all of us discuss how the process looks and how to optimize it to make the robot work. You have to do that this way, which is not easier. It is not easier than sitting together. And so it was hard before. My personal view is it's got harder. That doesn't mean it isn't a target to have and it isn't a place to look. I just don't think it's as easy as people are saying, and I don't think it wouldn't be number one on my list. My number one on my list would be increasing the footprint of GBS, without a doubt. And the automation thing is automated once you've got it into GBS and you've got people back at work. That would be
yeah, of course, because the SSCs, GBSs, or BPOs, however we call them, they develop. Yeah, they have some timeline how they grow and what their needs are. I will have one comment about those RPA elements because I believe that few years ago it was too expensive to be considered. Now it is not expensive, but we still lack enough education. So still a lot of areas are not very clear for the BPO or SSC managers what this robotization exactly is and how it works. So people are just afraid of it because we are afraid of this, what we don't understand how it works. Mm-hmm. So I guess that this is a big challenge for the RPA companies to do a lot of education work, that this is not scary, that this is helping, that you are not losing jobs, you can increase your efficiency and so on and so on. But this is not like that to be done. Yeah, it takes time, and this is definitely a challenge for the providers of RPA to educate the market, but also for GBSs to open minds to understand it and start getting ready for the real implementation of RPAs. I will answer this one question which you asked, do I know many of such companies? No, I know single ones. Some of them are quite advanced in that, and yes, they are really very advanced, but those are single examples across the whole big industry we are having at the moment. Yeah.
And Victor, for 3 years, it was the number one thing at every conference and talk we had was RPA. Everyone was talking about it. And me and you know 10 companies together that have actually achieved something worth celebrating, if you know what I mean, in this space. So that can't be a problem, you know, that all the other centers aren't doing it right. It's a bigger problem. I actually disagree with a little bit with what you said, because I don't think the challenge, honestly, I don't think the challenge is understanding them. I think the challenge is the process. I think that we currently have the view that the robot needs to be developed and implemented in the center, and therefore the information, the starting point is info that comes into the center. If the info that comes into the center is varied, meaning landscape, portrait, yellow paper, green paper, and you always need it to be A5 landscape on white paper, and about 20% of it comes in that way, then the robot's not going to be efficient. Unless you get everyone in the process, at the beginning of the process, doing it the right way, you're not going to achieve the robotized element of success. And I think that's the much bigger problem, rather than the people in the center worrying about their jobs and everything. I don't think that's the problem. I think you don't have enough volume to pump through the robot because of a complete lack of centralization. That would be my take.
No one said we have to agree with every sentence which we say here. Romek, the really last one. Short question, short answer. A week ago, I spoke to Kerry Hallard, the head of Global Sourcing Association UK, and they were just after running some survey across their members and across the industry. And one of the outputs out of this survey was that the expectation of the growth of the GBS industry this year, 2020, won't be higher than 2 to 4%. Do you think it is the right number or too low?
I think it's going to be -2 to +2%.
Really?
Yes.
So you even expect that it will be minus in here?
In this financial year, meaning in this calendar year to the next 6 months?
Yes.
Yeah. My logic here is, although I completely agree that there's new work coming and we're going to grow, that isn't happening while we're in the middle of COVID, because no one understands where we are. So the new stuff is just thought process. No one has this in their pipe. So this isn't starting next week. What is starting next week is centers which are in industries like tourism, restaurant businesses, which are going to, I wouldn't say collapse, wrong word, but by volume of workload collapse. those centers are not going to be able to maintain their headcount because they don't physically have enough work. And so those are tomorrow going to be in a problem area of too many people for not enough work. And so shorter term, I truly believe that we're going to see shrinkage, and the growth to counter that is not short term.
That's very interesting, to be honest. So I already thought that this, what Kerry was saying, was quite low number, but it looks like they are optimistic comparing to this, what you are saying. Yeah. Romek, it was a great pleasure to have you here in my podcast, BSS with No Secrets. For you, my viewers and listeners, it was a great pleasure having you also with us on this live session. This recording is going to be available offline as well. And I will include the links to the Romek's profile on LinkedIn and to PwC webpage to allow you to dig deeper if you will need to find more information about the views of how PwC or Romek himself thinks that the GBS industry is going to grow, change, or develop. So it was a big pleasure running this session with my guru. I need to say that one more time, because Romek is a person who actually opens minds when it comes to understanding of GBS industry worldwide. Thank you, Romek.
Thank you very much, and stay safe, everyone. Number one, please stay safe. That's number one for everybody and your teams. Thanks very much. Cześć, Victor.
Thank you. Bye-bye.